Some of you may not know this, but my very first master's degree back in Poland was in canon law, which means the church law. And to make things even more funny, I specialized in penal law. My thesis was written about Archbishop Lefebvre, who, after the Second Vatican Council, opposed the reforms and established his own splinter group. So I specialize in the canons and the laws about schism and penalty of excommunication. Little did I know that several years later, these very same canons, the very same rules I was spending nights writing about, would be applied to yours truly. Actually, in the excommunication decree I received, our beloved Archbishop quoted exactly the same canons I was focusing on in my dissertation. Now speak about God's sense of humor or irony of fate. You see, I am not a rebel by nature. I am not a rule breaker by nature. I do believe that there is need and room in the church and in any society for laws, rules, so that things don't fall apart. We have to need established system of what is permitted and what is prohibited, so that church or society can function well. That's why our very long first reading today gave us a list of 10 rules that Moses received from God on Mount Sinai. There is room for laws, for do's and don'ts in every religion. Actually, we need them. We need some guidance how to organize our life as people of faith. But at the same time, we need to remember there is a difference between what is legal and what is right or just. In the gospel passage today, we see Jesus throw a fit because someone was selling doves and pigeons and oxes and changing money in the courtyard area of the temple. This probably is the only instance in the gospel when you see Jesus really, really mad. When you see Jesus get upset about something in such a visual way. Now you need to know that all these practices were perfectly legal. Selling sacrificial animals and changing money so people can put donation in a box was not forbidden by the laws of Moses. All these practices that Jesus condemned were perfectly legal and fine. And yet, here we see Jesus get really out of shape, get really upset about the things that are perfectly legal. Now, on the other hand, those who broke the commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, prostitutes, tax collectors. Now, he was fine with them. He would be associating with them all the time. Now, these people did break the commandments. The poor money changers did not. What is wrong in this picture? Why do we have Jesus get out of shape in reaction to something that is perfectly legal and tolerate people who are obviously sinners, who are breaking one or two or more out of the 10 commandments? That's where our distinction between what is lawful and what is right or just comes in the picture. Especially as Americans, we are uniquely gifted in separating these two issues. Not everything that is legal or lawful is right. And sometimes what is just and right is illegal or not lawful. Let's go back to the very beginning of our country, when the original 13 colonies decide to disobey the laws of the British Empire. Taxation without representation, remember that? It was perfectly legal. The law was on the books. And yet our founding fathers say, well, it may be legal, it ain't right. This was the founding moment of our country. Our forefathers decided that it is okay to break the laws when they are not just. At the most defining moment of U.S. history, we have disobedience to the law. And ironically, every time we make progress as Americans, we break and eventually change another law. Law or rules that were legal but unjust. Slavery was perfectly legal. Selling and buying human beings was legal until we decided it is not right. Forbidding women to vote was perfectly legal until we decided it wasn't just nor fair. Rosa Parks, Dr. King committed felonies and broke laws that were on the books. And yet, today, we hold them in high esteem because they did what was right, even though it was illegal. The history of progress of our country is a history of discerning what laws and what rules are just and which one of them are unjust. In 2015, Winston Calvert, my friend and one of our lawyers, asked me if I would help him by breaking law. And knowing me, I said, sure, which law? You see, Winston at that time was a city councilor, meaning the main lawyer for the city of St. Louis. And he wanted to file a civil lawsuit against the laws of Missouri that prohibited same-sex marriage. So Winston asked me, would you perform a same-sex marriage? In this way, would you break the law so I can sue the state on your behalf? Of course I wanted to. Unfortunately, Supreme Court stepped in and legalized same-sex marriage a few months later. But that was another example how we as a society come to a point when we acknowledge that some laws are unjust and they need to be changed. So our rules, our legal system represents what we stand for. From the very beginning of the US as a country, through our struggles today, the history of faithful Americans is the history of discerning what is right and legal and what is wrong and needs to be changed in the books. If you think about it for a moment, it is also a job of every person of faith. Our moral choices always have to take into consideration what does the law say about it and what do my guts tell me about it. What is my conscience telling me what is right or wrong? And hopefully, many times, what is legal will be right. But sometimes we have to take a stand. If you have to compare this discernment process to a TV show, I would say take about 75% from Law and Order and the remaining 25% from Ellen DeGeneres. Put these two TV shows together and you will have a healthy dose of what it means to be right, what it means to be legal. Amen.